Welcome to the first episode of the Designer's Way podcast. My name is Nicole, also known as Interior Goddess across all platforms. I am a Brooklyn native and an East Coast nomad, and interior design is my life's work. But I am passionate about so many other things. Most recently, it's building safe community. Designer's Way was built out of the desire to talk about the soul work of interior design, the personal growth and how it directly impacts us, our creativity, and how we navigate business. This podcast was directly inspired by Dolce's experience with the book The Artist's Way. And if you are not familiar with The Artist's Way, it's a book about creative recovery. It's a 12-week guide to higher creativity, and there are daily prompts to help you get through. But the main idea is that every day for 12 weeks, you journal 3 pages a day of free writing. These are called morning pages. One day a week, you take yourself out on something called an artist date to do whatever your heart desires. So these, along with other discovery prompts, are supposed to guide you through to creative recovery. And I think that this book is for everyone. For those who don't know what their creative thing is, and you're surrounded by people who just seem to know what their creative outlet is, this book is for you. It's also for the person who knows exactly what their creative outlet is, but just needs some help refining it. The confidence that you gain in your abilities and your inner knowing from this book is unmatched. Okay. I watched Dochi's series on her experience with this from 5 years ago, and the things that she's created from this paved a way for her to go on and win a Grammy. So I will take my chances. Okay. So, as I mentioned, this is a 12-week course, but at the time of filming this, I'm not even complete with it. A goal of mine this year is to shorten the gap between me getting an idea and execution. So, rest in peace to all the ideas that have died because we gave it too much space and overthunk them into an early grave. So, for me, now it's get an idea, pray on it, and then execute. Okay. My goal as a friend and as a designer is to always support people back to themselves, their true selves. If you ask me for advice, I'm probably going to spin it back on you and all the information that I know about you because I truly believe that you always know the answer. You know the answer. So this book is to help you get back to that, but in a creative way. I am one of those people that believe they need to put tariffs on podcast mics. I just don't believe that everyone should have one. So if I'm going to do this thing that was put on my heart, I didn't want it to be just another. There has to be something special about this that makes me even want to do it. I realized that there was a gap in talking about the soul work of interior design. There are so many business podcasts that have quite literally held my hand through business, through margins, through markups, through processes. But the inner work that it takes to get there is what I want to talk about. I am just so bad at small talk. And I understand that there is a need for it in certain environments, but the beauty and community is getting past all of that. The conversations that really connect me to people is usually beyond surface level. What really makes you think and create the way you do? What did you have to silence in your mind to become this version of you? Tell me about a project or a creative or personal encounter that completely shifted your mindset. I know I'm not the only one whose life is just full of aha moments. Of you who have never seen my face a day in your life, again, I'm Nicole or Interior Goddess, and my design firm is called Goddess Interiors. You see what I did there? I started this business back in 2017, but I had a lot of wild and crazy events happen since then. Some that I'll share in this episode, but a lot of it will unfold in later episodes. So, to kick off this introduction the right way, let's start at the time that I fell in love with design. Kind of like the movie Brown Sugar, when he says, "Tell me when you fell in love with hip hop." Let's do it. So, as I mentioned in my intro, I'm just a little girl from Brooklyn, New York. And around 12 years old, we start thinking about high school and where we want to go. I had no idea, but I knew I had to be intentional about choosing where I want to go. And that word intentional wasn't a buzzword back then, but looking back, I can now see that that's exactly what it was. I was the kind of kid that would paint my mom's furniture with Crayola washable paints. I remember watching those 1-800 infomercials about the art classes and begging my mom to buy me one, but of course she did not. But I knew that that's where I had an interest. So fast forward to applying to high schools, it was a thing back then. Like if you were an artsy kind of person, you would go to artsy high schools. So I had applied to art and design and the fashion industries in the city. And a friend of mine and I stayed up all night for days at a time preparing our portfolio. My friend was so talented, but I couldn't draw that well. But when it came for audition day, we had to sit for an exam, and I poured my little heart into that question of why do you love design and why do you think that you want to attend this school? The essay question. And I have always loved writing, so I poured my little heart into it and I got in. Fast forward to shopping for school the summer before high school, because if you're going to get into art school, your outfit's got to be fire, okay? My mom gets a phone call while we're out shopping and she says, pause on this. You got into a boarding school in Pennsylvania and you have a week to pack your things and leave. Okay. Let's just stop right there for a moment and imagine my 13-year-old heart. So let's give her some love real quick because she's been alchemizing since then. She took an unexpected turn of events and turned it into the best case scenario. So I packed my things and went off to boarding school that I had no knowledge of prior to then. And when you hear boarding school, you think, oh, she must be rich. And no, I far from. But I came from a loving home that gave me everything that I needed. So I'm on campus, and in order to be on campus, you need a job. I got my first job in my school cafeteria at 13. And I would compare my experience there to Hogwarts more than Zoe 101. And if you went to BMA and you're listening to this, I love you. We went through the trenches together and you were a real one. Okay. So my first year there, I tried everything to get sent home. My grades dropped. I was probably a C average student. Nothing worked to get me sent home. I was a band geek throughout high school and college. My dad is a musician, so that and having practice in church really gave me scholarships throughout my entire academic career. So my second year in high school, I volunteered in the tutoring center. Girl, why would you volunteer in the tutoring center? You do not have the grades for that, but I did have the leadership skills. So by my junior year, I started getting into drama class, not drama class. And I led a choir at one point. I was in a girl group at one point. But what stood out to me the most was my home ec teacher, Miss Anderson. And if you're listening to this, I love you down. Junior year, we had this presentation where we had to put together a class play and present it to the school. So for the junior presentation, I had this idea to sketch the bodies of everyone in my class, which is about 80 people, on a roll of trace paper, those really big blackboard papers, and paint the silhouettes of their body pink. And I told my teacher, Miss Anderson, and she was like, yeah, sure. And I could almost tear up now just thinking about it because she was the first person to ever support me in bringing a creative idea from my brain to life. No matter how small that may have seemed in that moment, that was really nice of her to actually think about how that would impact me and support me in doing that. And so I painted everyone, I traced everyone on the paper and I painted it pink. And that was the backdrop for our class presentation as we were doing our play. So towards the end of junior year, I knew that I wanted to be an RA. And if you're not familiar with dorm life, an RA stands for being a resident assistant, which is pretty much a student that oversees a portion of the dorm. And I really wanted to be an RA, but I didn't have the grades. And so I would just volunteer and assist wherever they needed me to. And I remember at the end of junior year, the dean pulled my mom aside and she said, listen, her academics are not that great. They need some work, but she has great character. She told my mom, she was like, her influence and her leadership is strong, and we would like to bring her on as an RA. And I was like, girl, that was the first time that I ever had experience with my character. I've held on to that, putting in the work, even when the outcome isn't promised. That has definitely carried me through a lot. So senior year, I'm an RA and that means free room and board. And now I have my own room to make my own. And this is where the seeds for design began. I found this emerald green Chesterfield's love seat. And now that I think about this Chesterfield sofa that I just did that blew up, that really made my room feel like a safe haven for me and my friends as I was an RA my senior year. So, quick fast forward to college, I got into a university in Maryland on a band scholarship, and I spent 2 years there in their education program. And I partied a lot, and I regret none of it. But I was so sad. I was very unhappy. I was more concerned about what the classrooms looked like than what was actually going on inside of the classrooms. So after my second year, I didn't tell anyone. I think I told my mom after I had already moved off campus, but I signed up for a community college nearby for interior design, and this is where everything changed. I would be in studio from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 3 days a week while working. I met some amazing girls during this time. If you're here, I love you also. I had a drafting professor named Tanya that was so hard on me, but it was only because she saw my potential. She would make me redo my draftings countless times, but she saw how hard I worked. And at the end of the semester, she gave out awards, and I was given most hardworking and resilient. That was yet another gem in my pocket that would really carry me through for a really, really long time. So while in school, my first job was in West Elm in DC. And this was when you could walk into a place with your resume in hand and be hired on the spot back in the day. I did visual merchandising for West Elm and Pottery Barn. They're both under the Williams Sonoma family. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed doing visuals. And I'm like, oh, I can do this. I then saw on my job board at my school that a kitchen and bath showroom in Rockville was hiring. And so I did that. And with no formal experience, I was able to be promoted from receptionist to junior kitchen and bath designer within 3 months of working there. I also worked part time at Lazy Boy. And if you didn't know, they don't only sell recliners, they have a whole dining and bedding line that I was trained to upsell clients from recliners to full home solutions. So my sales training began very early on. While doing all these things, I was still in school, and I really wanted to find a way to get back into a 12-year college, a 4-year college for design. I got into college in Sarasota, Florida. And when I went to visit, I quickly realized that Sarasota, Florida is not for a city girl like me. Okay. I then got into the New York School of Interior Design in 2016 and then made my way back to New York to finish school. So I'm back in New York and I have way more experience than I did when I left. And so I continue working in sales. And I also worked for a celebrity designer in Brooklyn that I will not name because that did not work out. But what I will say from that experience is that there's a huge gap in people in luxury design and people that look like me. So that's what I will say that I learned from that experience. And after that experience, I'm like, I can do this. I started my own business in 2017. I would vet my furniture sales clients and turn them into full service design clients. Same thing that I was trained to do back in the day. I started off as e-design only, and I've done almost 200 e-designs since then. Okay. So fast forward 2020 rolls around and we all know what happens then. And by 2021, I knew that I needed something different. I got an opportunity to sell window treatments. And I always say that if you get an opportunity to learn a specialty in your industry, to take it. And so I quit my job in sales and I went to sell window treatments. I have this gift that I'm able to tell when something is not for me very quickly. So I realized that that window treatment job was not for me. And I exit stage left so fast, okay? But I was very much interested in the idea of it. But now I'm left with this new car that I bought, no job, and I was just thrusted into full-time entrepreneurship. That year, 2021, I also started my mentorship program. And that set me on fire like no other. I got some amazing clients that year. I think I even started my first international project then, and that made being a Caribbean relocation designer kind of like a specialty of mine. People who are thinking of returning back home after they've worked in the States for a long time, or people who just want to diversify their real estate portfolio and um, build homes back in the islands. That has become like something that I really, really enjoy doing, and that people sought me out for doing after I built my family's home back in 2020. Yeah, 2021, I'm thrusted into full-time entrepreneurship. I have this amazing mentorship program. I'm designing homes all over. And at the beginning of 2022, I get another opportunity to go into corporate design and furniture buying. And that I've been doing for the past 3 years. So that was one hell of an introduction, but that was like the highlight reel of things. And the sole work of interior design does not allow me to only talk about the polished things. This past year, a series of things happened that shifted my world completely. After being in corporate design for a few years, my business naturally took a back seat. I'm still working with clients, but not able to grow it to its full potential. And that's just the natural flow of life, right? The natural flow of your bandwidth. But at the top of 2024, as I was moving from Connecticut, which is where my corporate job is, back to New York, I was so focused, right, on climbing this corporate ladder that my body shut down. I started having full blown seizures. There's a saying something along the lines of ambition without action breeds anxiety, and not taking action towards your purpose breeds anxiety and sores in your body. And every time you ignore what you're really supposed to be doing, that piles up in your body. I had gotten so used to ignoring my inner cues that I started having seizures. My body said, absolutely not, overload, please stop. And I'm healthy, pretty healthy otherwise. And so I knew that this was an attack on my mind and not my body. So at the top of this year, 2025, I went on sabbatical and eat, pray, love, if you want to call it that. But I took my butt back to the islands and I sat and I prayed and I went back to the beginning of a few things. The beginning of my journaling. I journal and I love to write, as I mentioned, and I believe that it was the first journal entry was exactly January 15th of 2015 is when I started, and that was almost close to the date that I had went back and was reading it. So it was almost 10 years exactly. And reading my journal really showed me that I had accomplished so much in that 10-year time span. Things that I've written down that I couldn't even dream up that I would have done, things that happen so organically. I've always say to leave room in your plans for God to surprise you, and for Him to show you how good it can get. Because some things you just can't even like fathom on your own. Then I went back to the beginning of 2018 when I met with a brand specialist and I told her my vision for my brand and was given the name Interior Goddess. On that call, we secured all the usernames and the LLCs, and I'm still in the process of trademarking. But during that time of questioning everything and being in a position of doubt, I had to go back to the beginning and the main reason of me even doing this all. Like, girl, do you not remember that you are the interior goddess? Humbly, but really, you know? And immediately that shifted my heart posture and the way I approach my life's work. So, this is the soul work that I'm talking about when it comes to creating beautiful spaces that I would love, love, love to hear more about. That led me to the creative recovery of the artist way. The creative recovery forces you back into the play of work rather than the bird's eye view of work, if that makes any sense. In corporate, you're doing a lot of managing processes and cycles and vendor management. And so the projects that I get to work on require a lot of delegation. So I don't get to do a lot of the fun stuff like sourcing and mood boards and putting pretty things together. The ideas come from me, and then I'm not as close to it anymore until the end, which to me removes the intimacy of the work, right? The artist's work also helps you diversify your creativity. It helps you release the pressure of your creativity being your everything. Just like any other relationship, one person shouldn't be your everything, right? The same is with your business. Your business shouldn't be the only source of creativity and your income. That can lead to burnout. I believe that ideas have energy. And as a multifaceted creative with maybe just a splash of ADHD, some ideas you're supposed to just write in your notebook and save for later. But some ideas you need to take action on immediately. And other ideas just float on to the next person that is ready and is willing to use their energy to bring it to life. And you get upset when you see someone else execute an idea that you had because they moved with urgency and you didn't. I almost gave up, but the artist way has really played a part in me pouring into my passion projects and really leaning into being a solid designer with so many gems, but still so much to learn. I am so excited to share so many of these lessons with you that I've learned over the past 10 years, and also bring some of my designer friends on to just vent and even talk about some of the things that they've gone through personally. And maybe we can talk about some of the things that they've gone through that affects the way that they create and run their businesses. Until next time, Designer's Way, out.